People misunderstand contract jobs because they think that it's just something that's a last resort. But I've actually used contract jobs throughout my life to accomplish a lot of different goals. And so I thought I would just come on and share that with you today. So, first, though, I want to tell you that I'm going to be speaking at the 2026 let me try that again. I'm going to be speaking at the 2026 Job Liberation Summit happening virtually online May 1st through 3rd. And I'll have a link to get tickets in the description. But just in case you want to hear it, it is tinyurl.com/Celeste dash job lib, JOBLIB. And I'm going to be talking more about contract work and how to use it for income in this tumultuous job market. Um, so, yes, that is the Job Liberation Summit for Black women, May 1st through 3rd. So, hopefully, I hope you join us. Okay, let me get into it. So, here are 5 reasons that I have taken contract roles and what each one of those helped me to accomplish in my life. All right. So the first one is to get out of a toxic job. Um, I'm sure we have all been there where we can't bear going to that place and seeing those people one more day, but we can't just quit, you know, rage quit. Like rage quitting sounds good, but then our income would fall off a cliff. Um, so what do you do in that situation? Um, I actually worked I had a toxic job that was actually a contract job, but it was one of those it was a like a permanent contract job, if that makes sense. It didn't have an end date. And so if whenever you hear me like talk about contract jobs, I always prefer to do the ones that have an end date. You know, it's a 6 month or a 12 month or whatever, because um that keeps it transactional and it keeps the managers from feeling like you're one of their employees and then trying to like exert all this control over you or whatever. So I had that going on in this situation. The culture of the place was also kind of crazy. It was a lot of like um, just performative, trying to, what am I trying to say? Trying to just like posture and kiss up to the higher ups and all of that kind of stuff. It was like that was first and foremost, like, the work and the other stuff was kind of secondary to like the butt kissing. And then it was like infighting. And then I had like a pet to threat situation. The creators of the study or the research or the concept of from pet to threat are actually going to be at the Job Liberation Summit, and which I'm really excited about. I didn't know at the time that this was happening to me that there was a term for it, but as soon as I read that, I was like, oh yes, that is exactly what happened to me. So anyway, long story short, I was like the target of a harassment campaign. Like I literally had my director and the manager that she hired going around to people that I worked with in other departments and saying like, what do you think of Celeste? And them saying, she's amazing. And like having to correct her. Like it was just crazy. Um, anyway, crazy situation. And I want it out of there. So I had been trying to find a job. It wasn't really working out. But I just like, it was just unbearable. So contract work tends to have like a shorter hiring cycle. Um, so I think it was probably 6 weeks from my first contact with the staffing agency that I used to when I had a job offer and was like on my way out the door. Oh, and I should back up a step and say when I talk about contract jobs, I am talking about like through a staffing agency. I'm not talking about independent contracting. That's like a whole nother animal. So anyway, it definitely helped me escape a situation that I desperately wanted to get out of quickly. Um, and like I said, it was just a faster path. If I had just like waited around until I found a full-time role, I might still be there at that place trying to get out. So that is situation number one, where you might want to consider a contract job. Okay. Let me see. The second situation is when your business income or side hustle income or self-employment income is not enough for you to support yourself. So I've actually talked to a couple of women recently who have businesses, have things that they enjoy, but it's just not fully covering their lifestyle. So this is like a perfect situation for contract work, right? Um, Also, well, let me just explain this one and then I'll circle back. So, where do I start this story? I was laid off during the Great Recession, and I was burnt out. They were laying off people every quarter and then spreading the work around to the people who were left. And so I was in one of those later rounds, which means I lasted through all of these people getting laid off, and then I got a portion of their work put on me every time. So it was a lot. Um, and so when I finally, got laid off, I was burned out. I didn't wanna I was the last thing I wanted to do was turn around and start applying for another job. And then again, it was the Great Recession. There were no jobs. So I ended up learning about online marketing, and eventually I turned that into consulting for small businesses. And for a while, all of that was great, and it was enough money for me to live on. But things changed as they do, and the money started to dry up. And I also just got tired of having to prospect, like having to go out and line up new clients and pitch my services or bid or whatever. Like all of that is time consuming and it's not like my core strength and what I wanted to be doing. So I was like, okay, I need some money, but I still don't want to go back. So I actually reached out to an agency and found a part-time contract role, 3 days a week, at this place in town, and just, did digital marketing. And it was enough to like, you know, it kept me going for a little while longer, right? So that is always an option. Um, the other scenario, actually, let me take a step back. Um, After that was like a short term contract. I think it was only like, I don't know, 5 months or something like that. So then when that ended, I still was like, okay, I still don't want to prospect, but I still need money. And so I began the process of finding a full time, like 40-hour a week contract job through a staffing agency. Um, so, yeah, if you're someone who is, maybe winding down a business, or, your business, maybe you want to kind of downgrade it to a side thing for a little while, contract work is perfect for that situation. Okay, the thing I said I was going to circle back to is if you want to start a business, um, what people may not fully understand about contract jobs is that you are typically capped at 40 hours a week, because if you go over that, the client has to pay overtime and they don't want to do that because that's going to blow their budget. So it's in everybody's best interest to keep you within the 40 hours a week, which means when you go home or when you log off, you're done. You have all of that bandwidth and nobody's calling you or emailing you or asking why you didn't respond or whatever. Like you're off the clock. You get to leave work at work. And, you know, typically you're out of the fray, you're out of the politics, you're out of, all of that as a contractor. So I mean, not 100% all the time, but in my experience, I think there was one exception. Like I said, that job where the contract didn't have an end date. And so they kind of treated us like employees. But outside of that, in every other contract job I've had, there's been like a clear understanding that I'm not an employee and I'm not to be controlled like one. So all that said, it frees you up energetically. You have all that bandwidth and spare time to do something in the evenings if you wanted to. So that's just something to think about. Okay, moving on. The third reason why you should consider a contract job is to change careers. So if you want to move into a field that you don't have direct experience in, um, contracting can be a really great way to do that. So, I talked about this in a conversation I had with Dr. Kenya Reed. That video is called How to Change Careers in Your 40s and 50s Without Starting Over. And I will link that for you in the description. Um, the way I first discovered contract work back in my 20s was because I wanted to change careers. I was working in corporate and I had a quarter life crisis, and I was like, I want to do something meaningful. I want to work for a nonprofit. So I quit my job with no job lined up because I was reckless back then. And and then I went out and interviewed for nonprofit jobs, and they were not interested in me because I did not have nonprofit experience on my resume. And so I was like, well, this sucks. Um, so I found some staffing agencies that place talent at nonprofit assignments, basically. So I was able to do several of those like on a long-term basis and build up my resume. And that did eventually get me a full-time job at a nonprofit. So that's one example of using contracting to change careers. I also did this a few years ago when I decided that I wanted to get into tech. So I was going out for a job title that I had not actually held before. I had like adjacent experience and I was able to kind of, reframe my resume and position myself or whatever. But like I had never done the job before and I had never worked in tech. Um, but the thing about being a contract worker or a contingent worker, they often call it, is that you aren't as big of a risk for the company. So they are more likely to kind of, take a gamble on you if you, maybe don't have the ideal resume that they're looking for because they don't have to pay you're just less expensive to them. They don't have to pay the severance and the like all the stuff that comes with hiring a full-time employee. And they might not have the head count, but they just need the work done. So yeah, if it can be a great way to kind of get your foot in the door if if it's a brand new area for you or a career where you maybe don't have quite as much experience. So and also, oh, one other thing I want to say is that the actual interview process itself, like the actual process, is much shorter and much easier as a contractor. I don't think I would have made it through like the rigorous multi-round tech style interviews. Um, that very first time when I was new to the industry and didn't have any experience. So I'm pretty sure there's no way I would have gotten through. But in my case, I had, I had a screening call with my agency or whatever, and then I had a 120-minute interview over Zoom with the hiring manager, and she was like, "I think I want to hire you." And the next thing you know, I have a job in big tech. So again, contract work can be your way in, um, if you're changing careers. So, okay, let me see. Did I cover everything? I think so. Yep, I covered it. Okay. All right. So, the next reason, the fourth reason you should take a contract job is to get your foot in the door at a company that you really want to work at. Um, so back in the day, there was this specific company, that I wanted to be at, had a great reputation. This is okay. Anyway, I'm not gonna, I'm fully radicalized. So I was gonna say, like, this is back when, like, I cared about, like, oh my gosh, I want to be at this company. Um, that was a different Celeste. But anyway, yeah, I was like, oh, it just seems like such a cool place to work. They have a good reputation, blah, blah, blah. I want to work there. And I had applied and applied and applied, to no avail. But I found out that the agency that I used back in the day to get those first, nonprofit roles that I mentioned earlier, they actually had an office on site at this company that I wanted to work at. They had like a dedicated office. That's how many people they had working as contractors at that place. They had a dedicated office in the building. And I was like, oh. So I got in touch with them. I did the whole, hey, I've worked with you before, blah, blah, blah. Um, and I was able to get a job, a contract role at this company for a year. And then, I did a good job. I, proved myself and built relationships and all of that stuff. And then at the end of the 1 year contract, they converted me to a full-time employee. So it was kind of the back door, into the job, but like I got it. So if there is some place that you really want to work and you have applied and you just can't seem to get in, contract work may be your way in. And actually, at the place where I'm contracting right now, they just converted, a couple of my peers who had, hit their cap. There's usually a cap on how long you can be a contractor. Um, and they just converted a couple of people who hit their cap to, FTEs, full time employees. So something to consider. All right. Let me see. Did I cover everything there? Yep. All right. The fifth reason that you should pursue contract jobs: to fund intentional career breaks or sabbaticals. And that is the reason that I work contract jobs now. So there have been all of these other reasons throughout my life that I've worked contract jobs. But right now, the reason is so that I can take career breaks in between. So, um, in 2023, I got laid off, from a contract job, which can happen. In this case, this is tech. They were doing like mass layoffs and they had cut like my whole department. So I was scrambling, trying to find another job. And like I just said, there were mass layoffs. So there were all of these candidates who had flooded the market at the same time. And after a couple weeks, I was like, well, this is stupid. Um, let me just, you know, relax and not relax, but like let me stop like desperately applying and just take a step back. And so I decided that I was gonna do all the stuff that you put on the list. You're like, oh, when I have time, I'm gonna do XYZ. I had that list. And part of my list was, I have all these videos and Instagram posts and reels that I bookmarked and I wanted to go back and kind of check them out. Um, so I did that, which led me to Exodus Summit because I had bookmarked stuff from Stephanie Perry and Rashida Dow. And um, what they told me through their content was to stop looking for work, and to take a break and to not make my whole life about work. And then I looked at my bank account and I was like, oh, I actually don't have to work right now. Okay. So I decided to turn that summer into a sabbatical. So I went home to see my family and friends. I ended up staying. I just bought like a one-way ticket and was like, okay, I'll be there as long as I feel like being there, and then I'll leave. So I was there for like a month. I came home. I interviewed with the same tech company that had laid me off. Um, I got the job, and they were like, you know how this goes. It's going to take, a month. We got to do the background check all over again. We got to do this and that. We'll let you know when your start date will be. And I was like, bet, because last week I bought a one-way ticket to LA because I didn't know any of this was going to happen. So I'll be there and y'all can just let me know when I'm starting, and then I'll buy a ticket to come back. So that's what I did. And I had the most amazing summer. Like I cannot tell you the joy I felt. Well, first of all, I love LA. I love good food. I love warm weather. I love the ocean. So I love art. And so I was just doing all the things. I went to see, if you guys remember that Basquiat show, King Pleasure. It was in New York and then it went to LA. I missed it in New York, but I caught it in LA. And that thing was amazing. Um, I went to the Getty Museum. I went to the Getty Villa. I went bike riding through Griffith Park. I went to Jean George's rooftop. What hotel is that? The Waldorf? Beverly Hills, maybe? Um, I went to Santa Barbara. I rode my bike, alongside the ocean in Venice Beach and Santa Monica. I had the best time. It was amazing. And then they emailed me and said, all right, we have a start date for you. And I was like, wah, wah. So I reluctantly came home to start that new contract. And I realized that what I had just been through, I wanted to repeat every year or after every contract. I was like, well, I want to do what I just did again. So I'll work this contract, this 8-month contract, and then I want to take a break again and go like have some more adventures. So I kind of fell into this realization by accident, but that is what I use contract work to do now, basically. And it works out because there's like a built-in end point, right? At which I know I'm going to be able to take a break, or, have a sabbatical or whatever. And also because of that, I kind of know how to plan my finances, so that I can save up for the money that I need to live on during the career break or the sabbatical. So, um, yeah. So yeah, it just helped me to see that intentional breaks were something that I wanted to design into my life. And then I got to have a mini retirement in my 40s. And, because I don't know that I would be bike riding through Griffith Park in my, at 65. Probably not. So yeah, this is this is what I use contract work to do now. Um, to design the lifestyle that I want. So, as always, I like to leave you with something to think about and hopefully comment about below. Could you see yourself using contract work strategically to accomplish something that you wanted to achieve? Either, the things that I listed or just something else. Let me know in the comments. I want to know what you think. And before I go, I'm just going to quickly mention that tomorrow I'm going to be on Marissa Price's channel, Heal with Marissa Price, talking more about contract jobs. So that's at 3 Eastern, 2 Central, if you're watching this in real time. And yeah, just wanted to let you know that. So those are 5 reasons you should take a contract job. Hope that you found that helpful. If you did, please give this video a like because it will help others who might need this information find this video. If you found this conversation interesting and you want to hear more about contract work or lifestyle design, please consider subscribing to my channel. I am all about just figuring out how to build and create the life that you want, and to figure out how work and money and all of the things sort of fit into and support that. So if you want to have more of those conversations with me, like I said, please subscribe. And yeah, I think that is it. I have all that I have for you guys today. And thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.